Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the State of Chinese Mobile Games Market panel at the GPC Online 2025. I'm Ealing, Director of Business Development at Aptoid, an alternative app store with over 350 million active users across the Europe as well as US. Today, we are diving into one of the most dynamic and fast evolving markets in the world, China's mobile gaming ecosystem, and we'll explore the key trends, overseas expansion, monetization shifts, regulatory impacts, and investment strategies that are shaping the future of Chinese mobile games, both inside and outside of China. Let's meet our panelists. Each has something unique to add to the conversation. First, we have Mandy from 37 Games, one of the China's top gaming companies. She's focused on global investments and IB deals. Welcome, Mandy.
Thanks, Ilya.
Next is okay. And next is Ilya. Ilya is the CEO of Meridian Play, a game advisory and accelerator firm that focus on building partnerships between the Eastern and Western gaming companies. He is the expert in helping the Chinese games go global and also, bring the Western game titles step into the Asian market. Welcome, Ilya.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Uh, and finally, Monty, managing partner at Radiant Strategic Solutions. Monty brings deep knowledge of global strategy, capital matchmaking, and market entry advisory between China, the US, and emerging regions. Welcome, Monty.
Hi.
Glad to have you with us. Let's start with the big picture. What are the current trends in the China's mobile gaming market? Mandy, from your view at 37 Games, how has the Chinese gaming market changed since the pandemic in terms of what players like, how they spend the money, and which game types are doing well?
Um, Firstly, I think for the users' behavior and monetization, I think it's less grand and less spend, and players now prefer like quicker and easier enjoyment now. During the pandemic lockdown, making game was much easier than now, and people were still at home and with limited entertainment option. You didn't have to do so much, but users would probably every day. But now, with life back to normal, people have less time for games now, and I think the competition is not just from like other games; it's also from other forms of like entertainment, like short dramas. For example, short dramas in China have a market size around 7 to 8 billion US dollars. It's close to WeChat mini games or even over. And I think the one more for the Mortimer uh, it's economic factor, and I think with lower employment rates, and that means we have less disposable income, and players are looking for, I think, affordable fun now and less wide games that emphasize like less rent or less spend are doing really well last year. And they made less demand head on, I think, and Chinese people are still quite sensitive to economic environment, and China has a very high saving rate, and as a result, Chinese customers tend to be more cautious with their spending, especially during uncertain time like now. So I think these cautions directly will impact how much money they are willing to spend on entertainment, including games. I think the main demographic for gaming in China now is young generations and young people. However, this group is also under the most pressures now, and like career challenges or financial pressures. And this factor directly will influence how much money and time they can dedicate to game now. And this is why the trend like less grant or less spend and quicker and easier enjoyment now. So for the general popularity, I think the first one would be the mini game. It's a new market with a size around 7 to 8 billion US dollars market size, and the players comes from lower tier city in China, the third or the first tier cities. So they have money and extra time now. So the second may be the mixed channel to like lower the CPI. It's like combine A plus B, similar to what's popular in like 4+ games now. This approach, I think, could expand it to like RPGs or simulation games and even casual games. And the final one, I think, may be the cross-platform gaming. And that means it's a way to lower your commission fee to both like Apple Store or Android platform in China. So it's a way to improve your profit. When the market size is fixed, what can be changed is the distribution. And yeah. And back to Elon.
Okay, thank you very much for your insights, Mandy. And Ilya, as a publisher, have you noticed any changes in the types of games or featurings that Chinese developers are focused on lately?
Just to clarify, Eileen, we not the publisher. We
Yeah.
help to close the deals. Basically, we are on the advisory side. But yeah, we work with a lot of publishers. What I want to clarify, because I'm not sure how audience is familiar with Chinese market. So Chinese market is very restricted for overseas developers and publishers, and for domestic, not in the both way, but it's same challenges. Because you need to get approval, and it usually takes time, and it affects the development process. So I would say that this is the market where supply affect the demand, not the demand when affect the supply. So all the waves of popularity after the COVID was quite temporary, because I see that most of the core audience is going back to their preferences. If we say about popularity, definitely I agree that it's a WeChat mini games, because it was a wave of hyper casual, but hyper casual in most of the ways becoming more challenging because of increased CPI and because a lot of competition as well. So WeChat mini games apply for wider audience, and it's actually much easier to promote, but we need to also understand that it's a lower retention. So for most of the games, lifetime will be much lower than on mobile. I think the current developers rely less on Android channels because of, again, performance, only if they can manage their own traffic, like old school back in the day companies, when everyone was first platform and their own community. Nowadays, it's much more challenging because Android channels percentage is quite high, knowing that you need to acquire users. Again, about the wave of popularity, I can say after COVID, when everything was growing, it was a huge hype of party games, and we see now that basically they use branding strategies to acquire new users or to engage with the audience, because like I think percentage of paying users is not high as other genres, because originally Chinese audience prefer MMORPG, 4X strategies, like 3-7 games doing, by the way. So FPS games and competitive and multiplayer games. So developers, again, after COVID, after all the wave of hype, and traditionally rely on multiplayer, social, and competitive features. And I think the rising demand right now for innovative gameplay, especially when you target own audience. I think the good example is what Paper Game's doing. For me, at least, like it's a good example because it's highly community-driven products. And I think nowadays developers, we don't talk about PC games, but still trends of PC games affecting preferences of the audience, because mobile is still #1 platform. And we can see that Bendihua, which is localization, adding the local characters which appeal to the wider audience, and also culture elements and narratives. I think now it's a must, especially if it's a foreign products, but for domestic is #1, because it helps to build your community, because it's very difficult now to scale, because CPI cost is going also very high. In I think the latest thing I will say that most of the key genres, they rely on the old audience, I mean, which they acquired before. They acquire new users, but they do it in a different way, because like the standard marketing became very difficult. So they engage more with offline and community, and they try to keep the core user base and maybe get the new audiences through the collaborations, because it still will be the same budget but bigger efficiency comparing to the previous years. Yeah, that's my perspective for now.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ilya for that. Actually, I mean, my previous company, NetEase Games, they have developed the IP like Final Fantasy for almost 20 years, and this has been applied, to the other games as well. And for the new game develops, then actually that will totally relies on the new platform like the WeChat mini game. So everyone, either they're old or maybe they're young, the female, maybe male, they can play the game, and the user acquisition cost might be quite low. Yeah, and Monton, from the big picture view, how are since like the new rules or tech like the AI and cloud gaming changing the gaming industry in China?
Hi. Yeah, let me briefly introduce my background. I've been in the game industry for 39 years, and 21 of those years have been in China. And I was part of the Street Fighters production at Capcom, so I have a strong production background. And recently, I've only focusing on business development, and like you have assigned me my homework, which is high-level pictures. So my focus is on regulation and tech innovations. The Chinese government has recently, actually not that recent, but they have introduced stricter regulations on regarding minors. So the regulations on protecting the minors online, this actually happened one time during the pandemic. The second time, more seriously, is October of last year. Imposed mandatory gaming time limit, real name and real name or real ID authentication, robust content filtering for online games. For some companies, this was a serious blow, and they talk about this being the reason why their income dropped. And you can very clearly see their income drop on certain platforms. But I also want to point out, this is not universal. A lot of companies actually manage this quite well throughout this transition. Some companies, I would say, maybe their content is more towards younger audience. So this becomes more difficult because you need the ID information, and some people just basically they would rather not deal with it. So the impact is it's an increased compliance cost for developers and reshape user engagement, but also restore some stability and trust after a period of regulatory uncertainty. So in a way, you could say the worst case has happened. So we can go from here. And on the tech innovation, so I have three areas I want to focus on. The first one is AI integration. Chinese tech giants like Tencent, NetEase, and ByteDance, they're heavily investing in AI, using it for everything from automated content creation to personalized player experience. So this is, some of it is already happening and some of it we're going to see coming out soon. The second point is cloud gaming. And I find it kind of funny because to most of the Westerners, cloud gaming is kind of a joke, and it's like it's almost like a metaverse. You know, you talk about metaverse now, it's kind of a bad joke. But cloud gaming in China, to my surprise, it's a real business, and they're actually selling cloud phones, and it works. So I'm not going to argue with success, because revenue success is revenue success. You can't argue with it because I personally don't agree with it. And they seem to do quite well with latency, or they have specifically picked games that can tolerate high latency. So they work fine. So the expansion of 5G and cloud infrastructure is enabling more seamless and cloud gaming experience, particularly for mobile gamers. So in some cases, they're actually selling quite inexpensive phones, and they call them cloud phones for this purpose. I have to say this is the extent of my knowledge, but the extent of my knowledge includes that it works. Don't make it sound like a joke. And the reason Westerners think it's a joke is because of Google Stadia. And what we talk about, like March in San Francisco, what we said is, even Google can fail at doing this, then what's the chance in us for making it? So I would say personally that sounds convincing for the rest of the world. Okay, and for development efficiency, AI and cloud tools are streamline game development, allowing smaller teams to iterate faster and at lower cost, which is crucial for a higher competitive market. So this is probably happening more than many of us are willing to believe. And this is beyond mid-journey image generation. We're talking about audio synthesis and content like the landscape, the level design, the character design. 2D, sure, no problem, but 3D, I would say that's in the works for environment and character. 3D and model, it's not great yet. And I'll stop here. Thank you, guys.
Okay, that's great insight so far. And now let's dive into how the Chinese game developers are going global. And over the past 10 years, more and more Chinese game studios have gone global. Some of them, like Genshin Impact, Last War, Whiteout Survival, or even the PC Steam game Black Myth Wukong, they did really well. However, the others are face some of the challenges. And Ilya, what are the biggest challenges the Chinese game developers face when launching overseas, especially in the Western markets? I know that you already, take some of the Chinese games to the, to the Western companies. Yeah.
Well, 1/3 of the 100 top games are Chinese. It's hard to say that they have challenges, but let's speak in general, like not positive things. So positive is the third of the games on the top 100. Mostly knowing also the teams, like and the size of the teams, it's easy to identify, the genre in some of the ways, like because you cannot compete with the Chinese developers in most of the way, like for SLG and 4X strategies. Most of the Western companies, they just don't have so many people working on the product and cannot do so much content. Like there are few companies in the world who can do 4X SLG games from the West, but comparing to China, not many. So I think if we talk about not positive, is first of all intense competition from established players, because now you need to compete with the local companies who go on overseas and also international developers who are there already. And for some of them, it's a domestic market. User acquisition cost, but I believe it's the same now problem in any country. But yeah, so now organic traffic is limited and fewer effective channels, or let's say recoup time is much longer. So also you need to navigate absolutely different ecosystem. So some of the companies going overseas, not because they believe in the product, it's just because like this is a chance to release the game, because like let's say some of the companies, they cannot release the game domestically. Some of the games go in Southeast Asia and doing great, but when we're talking about the Western market, product market fit is a different story, right? So also going Western market or overseas, you need to adopt different business models. It can be different revenue share. Let's say if you talk about Alien, you just came back from Vietnam, terms for publishing, they're usually different. I think for the Southeast Asia, because like of the payments and also different distribution ways, it also affect the, you know, the net profit for your product. I think also maybe it's my observation, because I live in China like 12 years. I think the diversity and talent pool it also sometimes affect success overseas, because like you still need to have international experience, because like if you go to the Western market, it might be challenging. But again, for Chinese developers, the easiest is Southeast Asia, just because like similar content preferences. In APAC in general, you can find your audience with the less challenges. But yeah, Western market in general, it might be absolutely different ecosystem. That's all from me.
Okay, thanks, Ilya. And Mandy, when you're looking at the Chinese game for investment, how do you decide if it has the potential to do well in the overseas market?
Actually, I have been doing game investment for almost 10 years, and I think this have been a gradual progress. Like in recent almost 10 years, in early days, Chinese games going overseas were mostly like RPGs or card-based games, and which primarily target Asian market. And over time, we have seen like a shift towards more casual game like match-3 or merge. Of course, 4+ strategy game, and also mobile and FPS. We got a broader global audience now. Actually, for 3000 Entertainment, we also we invest in studios and help them publishing their games overseas, and so we invest like dozens studios now, and I think they might be challenged to go overseas. Like the first would be the art style and thematic packing, I think, for Chinese game development team. And the second would be the storytelling and cultural understanding, I think. And the final one would be the system design or mechanics design. And it's a total different players. And actually, you need to have an art style appealing like player all over the world. Actually, for some Chinese game studios, especially some small size studios, when they're making games for overseas markets, the art often still have some Chinese vibe. So you just have a look and you find it's a game from Chinese studios, and the cultural difference in storytelling and can be tricky to handle. I think Project Makeover is a good example. One of the lead producer is a Western designer, so the game's design feels super authentic and really clicks to like Western players. They still can find unique team. You can find some team member from different culture or someone really know that culture really well. And I think another good example is Whiteout Survival, the most popular 4+ title last year, and it things of like winter, cold, survival, and simulation are easy for all players from everywhere to understand. And this is why I think this game performs really well in both in mainland China and overseas. They got revenues, I think 50% from mainland China and 50% from overseas. So you might need something with common consensus. And I think the final is the overseas players generally prefer some simple system or mechanics need to be easy to understand. And one way evaluating a game studio or game development team, and they need to understand overseas players, the preference and their preference and behaviors. And for now, we are looking for investment opportunity in like 4+ games and also casual games. On this too, it's an advantage if the designers also have a good understanding of players overseas. And actually, you need to have a market sense. And you see, you will see now it's a big challenge for this WeChat mini game to go overseas. I think the main reasons are like the art style, system design, mechanics, and also the like monetization models. All things need to be changed. And back to you, Ellen.
Okay, thank you very much for your sharing, Mandy. I do agree with you for this part. As last year I went to Turkey and stayed there for 1 week. I visited tons of the game developers, publishers, together with about maybe 10 CEOs from the gaming company in China. And we exchange so much insights for the casual game development as well as the publishing. And actually the sense of the marketing, I guess that will be one of the biggest difference between the Chinese casual game developers as well as the Turkish casual game developers. Yeah. And then let's come to the next question, Monty. Are Chinese gaming companies changing how they launch in the markets like MENA, India, or Latin America? Do you have any good examples or maybe tips for this?
Sure. I actually assumed our audience are foreigners from outside of China trying to understand Chinese market.
Mm-hmm.
But this question actually, I guess that the design of this question is for Chinese listeners. So yeah, I'm gonna have two sections. One is the strategic focus. So for Chinese companies to go overseas, they typically have two extreme approaches. One is the so-called high-end market with tier one, and that's the North America, EU, and Japan for high-end premium, high-quality games and expand into high growth. And then the other extreme is high growth regions like Southeast Asia, MENA, India, and Latin. So I would say so since this question is for MENA, India, and Latin. By the way, India, MENA doesn't mean Middle East. It's Middle East and North Africa. And it's the only thing related to make them related is geographically they're close and religion. Mm-hmm. But there's a big difference between Middle East and North Africa. Huge difference. I just went to Algeria last December, so I learned my lessons the hard way. So I would say the success in these markets hinges on deep localizations and adapting content, payment methods, and community engagement for local preferences. I know actually more Chinese companies not successful in going abroad. They don't publicize it, but if you're friends with them, then you know the truth. Most of them are not very successful. And my personal observation, this is just me, my observation is when I speak with a company that are not successful in exporting, I ask them, how many foreigners, how many Lawai do you have on your team? So you're going to MENA, so how many people from MENA region is on your team? How do you make sure your creatives are working for the local? Oh no. And then so they outsource it, obviously, right, to other companies. And who they outsource it? To other Chinese. So
Yeah.
it's like, and where do they buy traffic from? From other Chinese. And I just don't understand. You're going to other countries. Why do you continue to do business with your own people? Right? You are going to their business. Why don't you try to understand their culture? Why don't you try to buy their traffic? Buy traffic from their local social media. So anyway, that's enough of me pointing out the obvious. And I mean, honestly, this is really obvious, and we just don't understand. When foreigners trying to enter Japan, they hire local Japanese. When they try to enter Chinese market, they hire Chinese. So yeah, so right, it's obvious. I don't know why I need to point this out.
Not necessarily Chinese, man. I am the opposite experience, but I you got your point. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me talk about the best practices. I believe collaborating with local publishers and influencers for market entry and user trust. So it's important to have local partners to guide your way around. And I strongly against breaking local laws. If they require you to pay VAT, pay the VAT. Last year during China Joy, 3 to 4 people got thrown in jail from Sichuan because they broke the law in Brazil. When they collect the payments, they didn't check the whatnot. So porn content, gambling content, or video games, not paying local VAT. I just want to say this is a ticket to jail. Okay, one-way ticket to jail and not coming out. Because usually what happens is that country's foreign affair will contact Chinese Waijiaobu foreign affair. And when this happens, you are just like a little ant under the car tire. So you break out another country's law, it's really dumb. All right, the next one is alternative distribution. Leveraging regional app stores and alternative platforms beyond Google Play and App Store. So here I'm talking about Huawei, Vivo, and other local marketplaces. So in Iran, in Russia, in India, there are quite a few what do we call it, third-party marketplaces, and they have special access. Yeah, they have special access to other corners of the demographic we don't have access to. So, and by the way, about don't break in the local laws, you cannot say I don't know. People get thrown into jail anyway. So sometimes the local partners can help you figure out, what you can do, what you cannot do. And then community building is investing in local gaming communities and esports to drive engagement. I'm not big on esports, but having a local community, I think it's important, and allow them to communicate in their own languages. Some of the successful games that we talked about earlier, Mandy talked about, they actually have automatic translations. So people from different cultures, they can communicate with each other. And most of the high-end games, they all have this as a standard feature. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I do agree, with these points, because for myself, I'm working for the gaming industry for more than 17 years, and in at least in maybe around 10 countries, I have the local projects. So the way for us, I mean, to do the business in the overseas market is like this. Hey, you fly to this country, and then you set up the office in the local and recruit the local staff, and then you are going to do the user acquisition not only online through the big media platforms like Google, Facebook, or maybe TikTok, but also you are partner with the local communities, the local, I mean, platforms to acquire the users, to understand the user behavior, to understand the local the local laws. However, actually, for most of the Chinese gaming companies, the maybe the owner themselves or maybe the CEO, the management team, they never, I mean, fly to the local country, and they cannot understand the local market. They just according to the past experience for the user acquisition for the game production in China, and then launch the project in the local market. And I saw, I mean, so many, I mean, cases. Not only, I mean, uh, but for most of them, they are the failure one, right? And for the successful one, that will be, I mean, the typical one, I guess, that will be Garena start up, I mean, his team for the Free Fire, and then, I mean, Tencent Games, I mean, launched the project PUBG Mobile, and then Mutong Games for its mobile game, Mobile Legends Banban. They are doing quite well, I mean, for the global market. But for most of the companies, they are not doing, I mean, like this way. Yeah. So for this kind of like pain points, I can feel this, and it's really interesting. And for the audience, do feel free to leave your questions in the chat, and we will try to answer them at the end. And then let's talk about the monetization and user acquisition, the two things that are always changing very fast. And Mandy, how are the Chinese publisher adjusting monetization models for the overseas markets? Are we seeing more IAA based games, or there are more hybrid models with a mix of both the IAP and IAA? Can you share your
Actually,
insights?
oh yeah, actually it's a big challenge now, and I think the payment habits different between Chinese and overseas players. And for overseas markets, I think the monetization often needs to be simplified, and players might prefer like prefer the lower, relatively lower learning curve and less pressures to spend for like for many hard WeChat mini game, and with too complicated mechanics and payment pressures. So it's hard for them to get a success overseas, and especially Western countries. There might be works in Asia countries with similar culture. So it's a tricky balance, and I think until now, less grant and less spend, it works overseas too. So in the list, someone is constantly refining itself, its design, its last wall. Last wall is a good example. With a lower payment and faster paced gameplay, and reducing the learning curve for new players. The game successfully lower its monetization barriers and make it more accessible for players, for especially for new 4+ strategy players. And by doing so, it capture I think shifting market dynamics and scale up its success quickly. So this showed like how understanding and responding to players' reference can make a huge difference now. And on the flip side, Happy is an outstanding gaming company in China, but they have done really well overseas with a good gameplay and casual like experience. Well, their LTV is not as high, so they have managed to attract a lot of users based on a relatively lower CPI overseas. However, these games are struggling to get similar revenue in China because the CPI is much higher in mainland China. I think one reason might be the platform advertising problem, and I think the second would be some Chinese studios adopt the same gameplay and localize them for Chinese market and add deeper monetization layers. And I think this often leads to great success from especially last year. So I think in the domestic market, this games can offer a CPI much higher than you. So I think, yeah, that's a challenge.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. And Ilya, with the trends like IDFA and higher user acquisition costs, what are the best ways the Chinese games are acquiring the new users in the global market? Can you share your insights for this part?
I think it's pretty much the same as overseas developers because yeah, we can talk about how many successful companies were, how not many successful, but again, I review the 100 top grossing and I see the third of them Chinese companies, which means monetization is quite successful. So if we talk about the ways, I think one of the latest trends is web shop, especially if you're so-called mid-core, hardcore developers, you want to build your direct sales channels. There are different, how to say, cons and pros of building that, because like most of them are related to the platforms itself, because previously platforms were not allowing you to do that. But that's why the cross-platform solution can help you to solve the problem, because like if you're cross-platform, you can easily to do web shop. But yeah, you are limited in your genre, because like if it's a casual game, I don't really think it works. But some companies, they use loyalty platforms, reward platforms, so it actually helps. So it's technically motivated traffic, which was blocked back in the day, but nowadays there's a solution for the new ways for motivated traffic. I think community, but it's important to build the product around the community, because it's your core base, core players, and it's, I think, one of the necessary costs in a specific genres, of course, to invest in community, because if you run your own live platform and a web shop, you still reduce up to 25%. It depends how much you earn. So you can invest at least 10% in that or less, but it's sustainable. I think IP collapse, but in most of the ways it's because platforms loves it. So it depends on the size of the company. If it's a huge company, usually platforms can suggest what can be related to your audience. But yeah, it usually, if you're doing big projects and you're a big company, for mid-sized companies, it's if you plan any features and if IP collab is not huge enough, but during COVID, let's say, it was easy to get a feature in certain territories because like platforms like IP collabs, but maybe not a great idea to do game based on IP, just because like more and more not great results. Maybe it depends from IP as usual, but again, there are more unsuccessful stories than successful. So I think IP collab is for certain campaign. I think that's pretty much for now. Yeah.
Yeah. For having a solid community means, quite a lot for the game developers, so that you can just, extend the life cycle for the game. Like one of the best example, Oni the King's Return. Actually, this game has been developed since 2009. There'll be something like maybe 16 years ago, but the game has been designed from the mobile game, and until 2016, they changed it to the mobile game, and even until now, they have something like maybe 30 to 50 million US dollars per month for the revenue in the Western companies. And the key of the success is that they have a very solid community. Yeah. This is something like, I mean, really fantastic. And another question, Monty. Are more Chinese, just now you referred about the alternative app stores as well as the OEM stores. So from your point of view, are more Chinese gaming companies starting to use the alternative app stores to distribute the games?
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the I guess payment gateway monetization. So I basically my business has signed the biggest payment gateway in Taiwan called JCO, and also I've
Mm-hmm.
signed with the oldest electronic payment gateway in Russia called iFleet. Both Xiaomi and Huawei work with them. And again, I want to stress, don't break the local laws, pay the local taxes, uh, uh, because hey, we're like game makers, we're game publishers. We don't need to go to jail. It's stupid to do that, and just pleading ignorance or innocence it doesn't work. And a lot of big brands, they are aggregators, payment gateway, they're aggregators. They actually don't have local solutions. They don't have their arms down. They just do SDK API integrations, and they're just a brand. So you need to be careful. When you switch from App Store and Google to a third party payment gateway, the risk you're running is you don't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't pay you, what are you going to do? Like go to Russia? So so it's important to work with reliable companies who's been in the business for a long time, so they don't disappear. This has happened before. 2 years ago, Kiwi Bank in Russia, it had happened before. People lost money, and some people go to jail. So yeah, I would say third party payment gateway is important, and the second one is Steam Key stores. This is very exclusive to Chinese way of doing business. So they find access to buy Steam keys. They buy them in bulk, so they get discount, and they sell it to the Chinese players. Obviously, these games don't have ISBN. They're not approved by Chinese government. They just put the games on Steam, and they have the simplified Chinese version. And Chinese game players, because they can't buy Steam key easily, so
Mm-hmm.
you get the third-party stores to sell Steam keys. So there's a platform called China Play. They recently got acquired by Roki. So they help global and Chinese publishers to reach Chinese PC gamers through localized market and regional pricing. Haybox is another platform that they aggregate the Chinese players who play on Steam. And yeah, I will stop here and say no more. OEM partnership. So the pre-installed games is like such a throwback to like, I don't know, 16 years ago. So basically when you buy a phone, there's like games already installed on it. This practice is coming back, and it's probably because UA is getting too expensive. So a lot of the phone manufacturers, they're coming back with this approach. So collaboration with smartphone manufacturers for pre-installed games are common, but it's really back and increasing. So for emerging market, it's the same way. So emerging market, this practice is becoming big now. And then there's cloud gaming opportunities. They need content, obviously. They have the tech that they think that works, and they need content. So working with third-party marketplaces, I would consider cloud gaming being one of them. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Muntong. And now let's just, take a step back and talk about the investment. Investing has been tough recently, but there are still some good chances to grow. So, Mandy, how has the investment appetite in the gaming changed in China over the past year?
Actually, last year was a tough one and a really winter for the whole industry, and people found like the old path no longer works, and we need more innovation now. And I think one word for Chinese gaming industry is tenacity. I think the market is still digesting the pandemic evil bubble. And in recent 2 years, many companies have gone through like layoffs. So big companies have focused on their core business now. For the game investment, there's nearly no gaming found in China now. Due to like the lack of assets ways, there's no IPO or M&A opportunities. It's hard to operate a gaming fund in China. Strategy investor have become the main driving force now in China, I think. And these investors are typically gaming companies themselves and looking for expand their portfolios, secure publishing rights like us, or enhance their in-house development capabilities. So Tencent is still investing, but it's relatively more conservative, I think. NetEase has disbanded its development department and suspended their overseas studios, USA, Europe, and Japan. I think mid-sized company focus on survival this year and sticking to their core projects now. So, but we need some good news now, and the policies tend to be more open now. I think the the game license has become regular now. There are around 100 new license per month. So look ahead with the success of titles like Blackness Wukong. We are now seeing more resources flow into like native Chinese IPs now, like some Chinese traditional cultural things. So with the growing cultural confidence, I believe we will see more Chinese IPs, and I'm excited for that future.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. Monty, from your perspective at Ryzen deals, what types of the game companies or technologies are the investors most interested in right now?
From my observation, because a lot of studios come to me from all over the world. A lot of my I guess my influence circle is on the development side, studio side. So a lot of them come to me for help with funding, and I actually see the Web3 games funding picking up. I'm a little surprised, but I guess with Bitcoin going up, they become optimistic again. So that's through observation. There's no personal opinion. That's just the fact that I observed in the deals that I know. Web2 games, I would say it's still quite slow. And so, what are they looking for? Investors are prioritizing companies leveraging AI for content creation, live operations, and personalized gaming experiences. Yesterday, I was in a call with a company that they use machine learning to optimize payment conversion. And that's what they're trying to do. I think it's a tall order, but at least that's a claim, and it looks like they have the engineers to do it. I think that's a interesting, at least intriguing direction. Content creation, people are already doing this. I'm part of a company in Malta. They have, it's called Xgenia. They have prompt to slot machines, AI, agentic AI engine. So you type in a prompt like, I want a K-pop themed game, and they make you a K-pop slot machine. But this is very vertical. Like you have to write the code already, and the AI is simply swapping out the assets, the special effects, sound, graphics, and so on. We're not at the point where you can do prompt to games. And if it's prompt to games, it doesn't generate source code and art like traditionally how we make video games. Google Gemini, the way they make it, it's in the end, what you have is a blob, and you can't modify the blob, right? Because it's not constructed the traditional way of how we make video games. So anyway, AI and cloud is one direction, and there's a renewed interest in premium and single player games. You can say it's because of Black Myth Wukong and global demand for high quality narrative experiences. I would say narrative type games, it's always been in high demand. The problem is there are too many low cost, low budget, low quality games out there. So I'm very cautious about Black Myth Wukong. There's a saying in Wall Street. They say bears make money, bulls make money, pigs get slaughtered. And what are pigs? Pigs are followers. You know, there's a trend. You follow a trend. I would say I would like to see the company making the second hit. And what are they going to do? Black Myth, 猪八戒? I don't know. So this one-hit wonder studios is actually very common in game industry. If you guys been in the game industry long enough, there was a game called Implosion from a Taiwanese company called Leia. That's it. It's the only hit game that they ever produced. It's an indie title, and the sequel didn't do anything. And from what we know, usually sequel takes a lot longer and more expensive to make than the original title. So I'm not very optimistic. One-hit wonders are the common in game industry. You see studios for their entire life they make one hit, and the rest of it, people don't know. It's very common. It's very common in the indie scene. It Escape from Hell or The Edge of Inferno, I don't remember, and Binding of Isaac. I mean, so on and so forth. You have so many one-hit wonders in the game industry. That's actually the norm. Should VCs put money behind these one-hit wonders or one-hit wonder copycats? So anyway, that's my perspective. I think we should have a more mature, robust, and proven ways. Like what's been working in the past 20 years. Not, these guys, like a rock band, they make this one game. Let's invest in companies like them. Yeah, that's my personal bias. And for live operations, a lot of game developers are not strong with live ops. So strong live ops capabilities is a key differentiator as they drive long-term retention and monetization. Some of the game studios, they actually use AI or automated event management to help them do their live ops. And mini games and social games, they're attracting investments due to their viral potential and low development cost. So WeChat mini games. So that used to be what you have to do to lower your UA, but some companies are now just making mini games only. They don't bother making the apps version, and I think this requires different kind of know-how. And they are looking for party games. They're looking for co-op games. So with more social features, a lot of companies are looking for these kind of titles in China. And yeah, that's my view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we are almost out of time. So there is a question for you, Ilya, from the audience. They are really curious about how do you see as the biggest growth drivers of the Chinese mobile games market right now? Can you just go ahead and tell me answer this very quickly?
It's hard to say because it really depends from the genre. Because like with casual games, you're probably not gonna go to influencers because there is no point because you overspend your budget. With the PC games, there are multiple ways how to promote. It really depends from the genre and depends from the art as well. And depends who is your target audience, because like recently we did a game, it's absolutely Western IP, and we found the community in China. It's was quite easy. We did a quick research. But for mid-core projects, you still need to rely on partner. in most of the ways, because like as a Western company, you can do anything.
Mhm.
But as a local player, you just need to find your own channel for traffic. And if we're talking about user acquisition, right now, Douyin, which is TikTok, and Kuaishou, that's the main, basically #1 drivers of traffic. And if you're not talking about more deeper media buying strategies, but not every single company can do that. So they need to go to the agency because they don't have this tech to integrate these solutions themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our amazing panel, Mandy, Ilya, and Montun, for sharing such great insights. And to everyone watching, we hope you found this session helpful as you look into the partnership, investments, and growth with the Chinese game developers. Feel free to read out to contact to us on the linking, or maybe during the rest of GPC online. I'm Ealing from the Aptoid. Thanks for joining us today, and see you at the next session.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.